Well, good morning, everyone. This is Chris Dew with E1 Solutions, and today we're going to be talking about Popdock and focusing very specifically on one section, which is reporting from custom applications or web applications using the Popdock REST connection. I'll just say, I don't know if you know much about me, but I've been doing either integration or reporting off of APIs, different APIs and different systems for over 20 years now. And I still love this stuff. I'm still passionate about helping businesses be just a little bit more efficient. And I think Popdock has really been bringing that to people. And so today we're going to focus on how you can connect to something beyond even what we've given you so far. So maybe we should start with, what does Popdock have for you today? Popdock is a tool that gives you a number of things. One of the things that a lot of people really loving today, but we have embeddable actionable widgets, which basically allows us to embed external data from other systems into the applications you already use, whether that be some type of CRM system or some type of ERP system. We can now embed that information in there. It gives you a unified interface for reporting from any system. So again, a number of systems have different ways of how they filter data and maybe grouping data and things like that. We can give you one interface that gives you that same level of access through the user interface, without having to log into 8 different systems and have their different interface. Again, being able to access data from across more than one system. That to me, I think, is incredibly valuable. Being able to, in one application, hit information from, like I said, it could be the 10 different pieces of software you use every day. And a really big part of this is real-time data access. So a number of solutions out there that have been in the reporting space or even in that BI space have gone around, maybe warehousing some data, and you're now looking at stale data. So it might be from a couple days ago or a week ago. This is really pulling the data from the systems you need to do your job today. And so this is a real-time data access thing, and I think you'll see that it's a really, really good solution for pulling all those systems together. The last piece, scheduled exception reporting. I think this is a phenomenal thing that people are looking at today, because a lot of the reports that we create, we actually don't want to see. So we're hoping that there's maybe no data in there. I've heard it called a number of different things, maybe a wall of zeros, but basically saying, I have all these reports and there should never be data in there unless there's something wrong. And so if there's something wrong, I need to go look at that data and do something about it. So we can give you access to that. And that's just maybe a quick little glimpse of Popdock. So I think what might be best is to show you a couple of these things I just talked about and show you how easy it is to use before we go any further. So let me jump over into my system. Here is the main interface, right? So I can look inside of here, and if I wanted to, I could go ahead and I can click on this list, for example, right inside of the main Popdock web interface. And I can now see that, here we go, here are 3 POs I need to do something about. But it doesn't have to stop here, right? This same interface can be made available in many other systems. So if we just look at a couple of them I have open, I have a Salesforce system, and here we have Popdock data embedded right inside of here. This didn't become a developer exercise. I was able to bring in Zendesk tickets and maybe some ERP orders and show maybe some fun things too, even like some graphs and charts, those kinds of things. I can show that same kind of thing. Now I have some invoices coming from an ERP system right inside of a Dynamics 365 customer engagement system. So it has the same look and feel of the system I'm in, but it's pulling data from an entirely different system. Or again, maybe it's, like I said, an ERP system. Let me just refresh that. And again, I can have all my lists inside of here. So if I wanted to look at some inventory information, I'm right right inside of an ERP system, and I'm able to pull some of that, or I could be pulling from other systems as well using one of the 60 plus Popdock connectors. Or I'll show you one more, right? If I'm inside of NetSuite, same kind of interface. You can see I can pull data from across many different systems if I want to see those kinds of things. Okay, just a very quick overview. I just wanted to show you what you can do. And again, if we went back to this interface, we can do things like we could group on. I don't really have anything in this here. Let me flip over to a different list. And this is, again, just to mention, this is live data. So this is pulling live sales invoices. It's not stale. It's pointing to whatever that API is that we're getting the live data from. So I think we have quite a few in this one. We'll give it a couple more seconds. Okay. And if we look at this interface, right, I can do, like I said, if I wanted, I could add some additional columns. So if I wanted to maybe do some sorting by the location inside of here, I can do that. Just add that column. It's now going and getting, making sure it has that data as well. And from here, without even having to export to Excel or do anything like that, I'm able to do some of these simple type things, again, in a unified interface. Doesn't matter what the connector is on the other side, whether it be, a custom SQL database or a cloud application. Like I said, the 60 plus that we have connectors for. All right, I'll mention this too. We're at the mercy of, we're using the internet, obviously, right, to connect to these different connectors. And there are times when, they may be experiencing peak volumes to their interface. So right now I'm hitting an ERP system, and there's probably quite a few people that are logging in and getting, some of their initial data. So it might be just taking a little bit longer to connect to that system right now. Okay, I'm gonna do one more thing. I wanna refresh it one more time. I'm gonna try it because it seems to be running a little bit slow today. Okay, it doesn't appear to be behaving. Let me do this. I'll group by something else. Let's literally drag and drop grouping. And so you can see here, I can see all of the different invoices per customer. If we look at this one, this looks like this customer has been placing invoices with us fairly regularly. So just wanted to show you that some of those things, and just like unlimited filtering, is all built right in to this interface. So if I wanted to filter on, documents that were maybe greater than, and I could do some comparisons inside of here. I could say beginning of the start of the year. I can see if we have any. This should be basically be pulling in all the invoices from the start of the year. All right, maybe I'll quit using this specific connector because they appear to be running a little bit slow right now. Okay, we'll let that one be. Well, anyway, I just wanted to show you kind of just a couple things about the interface, and then I will we'll jump back in and get into more of the focus for today. So we talked about how do we use the REST connection, and I thought maybe before we jump into that, we should explain what is REST for everybody that isn't a developer. And so a couple of things I'll mention on this. Basically, it's web services or cloud applications that you probably heard about. Now, there's a couple of different standards out there. There was REST or RESTful is probably the most common one that you'll see out there. One of the predecessors was called SOAP, and that was big quite a while ago, and there's still a number of SOAP web services out there for cloud applications, but any of the newer applications you'll see that are exposing their APIs or their data to other people are probably building it with a REST type of API. So again, think of it as web services. Usually you'll often hear the different data types will be like JSON or XML is the data that you're getting back from one of those things. Again, for the common person, we maybe don't care about those types of things as well, but developers, like to know that information on how it's being utilized. And then again, just kind of what I was saying earlier is that 90% of all those web services that are out there today are probably using REST instead of SOAP. So there's still a number of legacy ones that are out there today that are using SOAP connectors, but you'll find that pretty much all the new ones, all the cool new applications that have mobile applications or whatever, they all have REST-based APIs. The last thing I was going to add on this is that this is typically the job of developers, right? If we're talking about APIs or web services, most of us, common people are not using that on our day-to-day job. Now, developers love to hear that. If they want to connect to a system, if they hear that there's an API or a web service, they're comfortable with that they can pull that data in. But sometimes, being at the mercy of the timing of a developer, right? A lot of them have pretty heavy workload, and being able to connect to those different applications without necessarily needing a developer can be very nice thing. So if we go at Popdock, like I said, there's over 60 plus applications we have today. Here's just a couple of them on this board. So we have dedicated connectors for those ones to connect to those kinds of things. But what we're talking about is we have a REST service in here where you can configure connections to anything. So it's stuff that we don't even know about. It could be an industry-specific application. It could be, again, maybe something that is maybe widely used, but we just haven't done yet. We haven't done a dedicated connector. What we're going to show you next is really how you can dig in and utilize this. So now the next few minutes we're going to take together is going to be demonstrating that REST connector right inside of Popdock. So let's jump in. I'm going to go back to Popdock, and what I'm going to show you, this is where you would start adding a connector. So if we go to connectors inside of here, you can see I have a number of connectors set up, but I also have a couple with this little logo that you've seen. So I have one called ShipStation and Test and Trello and stuff like that. I'm going to take you in this Trello one that I have today. Trello is basically a system, right, that has different boards. So people will show, hey, here's some tasks I need to do today, and they're on these different boards. They might be around, maybe a to-do list, or maybe it's some kind of a roadmap thing, or again, maybe some projects that they want to be working on. So people typically put these kinds of boards and tasks on those boards. And so what I'm going to show you right now is really how you can use this REST connector to connect to Trello in this particular case, but that you can actually connect it to any other API. And so again, some of the scary stuff maybe for some people, right, is that we are talking APIs or web services. And so I had to go, when I did this, I had to go out to Trello's developer place, and I had to go find their API. Now, one of the very first things you're going to find is, and this is probably the most important, is the authentication piece. So you're going to have to go in and find out how that API gets authenticated. So I did that in this case, and I got my API key and things like that. And that's where I want to talk about is what is, what are the ways that it actually uses to connect to it. So you can see right here, this one didn't really have an authentication method. It passes in after I got my API key, or it's basically a token that gets passed in. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I want you to understand that the capability of using maybe a basic auth or OAuth 2 is probably one of the biggest ones that people are using today, or again, even some kind of exchange token. Those are all built in here. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to connect to whatever web services we need. So in this particular case, again, we're going to be passing in that parameter later. And what you do, the base URL, this is typically, you know, it'll often tell you that right in the documentation. So it'll kind of, if you start looking at it, you know, in this case, it says, hey, here's your first API call. Well, it's kind of, in this case, it's telling me, hey, you should go all the way to here. This is the base for this. So we go all the way to here, and then as we do different things, if I need to pull the boards or tasks or whatever, I'm able to do that with each different method. So this becomes our base. And if I go back here, you can see, certainly that's what I have inside of here. I won't go into a lot of these details, but again, XML and JSON's available, and the different types. Most of them are going to be getting the data inside of here. This is where, though, we start looking at if I wanted to have a group of things, right? So in this case, maybe I have, if we look at it, maybe there's some stuff around, right? They have boards and lists and cards and actions and stuff like that. Maybe it makes sense in this case to add a group for each of these and do certain things under each group. You don't have to add them to a group. In this case, I haven't done that. And then I'm able to move on to the list section. So you can see I just have one list called boards, but I could have other ones in there that were lists and actions and different things. If we look at the configuration for this, what I want to show you is that it can be fairly easy to set up. So if we look at here, a lot of this stuff just kind of happens for you as we put in the name of boards in there, and that gives you the singular and plural name of it, just so it looks nice when we view it. But then this is where things change, right? It asked, the endpoint is another way of saying like a method if you're more of a developer. And so if we go back to this documentation, that is this piece right here, right? So this is the endpoint or the next method. So we're pulling the boards API now is what we're adding on next. So that's where we put the boards here. And then we can start looking into some of the other fun stuff. So the fields inside of here, it's really as easy as if we were to hit add field, there's a couple of ways, right? Since I already have some stuff in here, it's going to ask me to add each individual one. But right away, most people, how they add it is you can actually look at this documentation, and it'll usually give you, there you go, like a sample JSON like this. And literally, it's as easy as copying and pasting this in the sample that they give you, and now it reads that in for you, and it gives you all the fields that you want. My caution to you is the danger rate. Some of these APIs have hundreds of fields. I would encourage you to not, unless you're using all those, to not add them in. Again, in this case, even though there's probably 30 fields on here, I only have chosen 4 of them. So this is, I think, a good practice for you is to only choose the ones that you're getting. So if you need 5 fields or 10 fields, just do that. Don't go through all 100 fields in there. Just pick out the fields that you're going to need to get access to on that data. Just like any other list inside of here, though, we can do further calculations off the data that comes in, right? So maybe if certain APIs only gave you like a quantity and a price, and maybe you just wanted to do the math to say, hey, let's multiply that and come up with a subtotal. We can do things like that. I can choose which fields I want to default on the list. So in this case, I've chosen all 4 of them. But if I didn't want the URL by default, I could actually just remove that from here and then add it at a later point. So that's kind of a cool thing, is you have a lot of flexibility over how you want that to show. Okay, on to parameters. Now, in this case, you'll see that we have passed in 2 parameters, and so we have a key and a token. Those are what, if we went back to this and looked at, let me just show you this very quick. You can see right here, your key and your token. This is what basically is getting passed in. So after that initial authentication type, where we get our token, we're passing that into each call. Well, this can be saved as a parameter and reused. So I don't have to do this over and over again. If I have, 10 different endpoints or methods, I could just do it one time and then use that for each one. So there's some cool things around that. We can also do some stuff around paging. So this is really important, I think, when you start getting into pulling back 10,000 records and saying, hey, maybe I only can grab 100 at a time or 500 at a time. So it gives you some access to do those kinds of things in there. Now, I won't cover all of these areas because a lot of them are very much like other areas of Popdock. But relationships is pretty cool because we can actually relate this list back to some other data that has nothing to do with, in this case, our Trello boards. I could have, maybe if I had like a project, let's say I was using Trello for a project kind of way. If I had my customer ID in there, I could maybe link that back to an invoice or maybe some kind of a case management system. And I could basically make a relationship between 2 entirely different systems, but Popdock can do it for you. And then now you can have a combined list or show the details maybe from that list inside of one Popdock interface. I won't talk a lot about security, but you again can grant which users have access to this. So this is very important, I think, depending on which types of data you're getting. You do have that capability to pull back some sensitive data sometimes, and so just making sure that you have the capability to lock it down to who can actually bring that data back is a very positive in my book on this. So that's how we set up a connector, right? It's pretty easy to connect to whatever you need to. I'm going to show you examples of 2 of them inside of here, pulling back the data. So if I click on my boards one right now, you can see under my Trello connector, I'm pulling back all of the Popdock boards. Or sorry, not Popdock. I'm pulling back all of my Trello boards in Popdock. Most of them are around Popdock, as you can see inside of here, but I'm pulling back just those 4 fields that we had specified. Let me show you, I guess, again, if we had more than one method or endpoint in there, right? So if we had boards and lists and actions, we'd be able to see all those other things in this little drop down. Now, another thing, I'm going to point to an entirely different REST connector that we had inside of there. And so if I click on the shipments, for example, this one is a connector called ShipStation, or I should say a REST API called ShipStation. And so we're pulling some records in from ShipStation here. And this one, again, is used oftentimes for like pulling in orders across several different systems like Amazon, eBay, and things like that. And then the seller might do something with them to distribute, again, maybe how they handle shipping through the various methods. Could be like a FedEx or UPS or United States Postal Service. So those kinds of things can all be handled through that application. But we've just given you a little more visibility. So here's all of my shipments. Now, again, I could do every kind of thing inside of here I wanted, right? If I wanted to group by, I don't know, if I wanted to group by state, for example, I can simply do that, and I can see all my orders, by state. I can also, again, just to show you, I can flip between the different things. So in this one, I actually had a couple of other connectors. I didn't just have shipments. I also used a couple of the other methods or endpoints to pull the orders or duplicate orders or order items. So those were different API endpoints in that ShipStation connection that we can utilize. And so let me just show, I have a couple of these up. Here's all of the open orders. have this on another tab, so it looks like there's just a few of them here, and then I can see here's another tab that is actually pulling all of the orders in. So just wanted to show you that, again, we have that capability to pull from all of these different types of systems, and I think you'll find out that with the 60 plus connectors that we have, plus the capability to tap into all these other ones that we don't necessarily have one for today or don't even know about, you'll see that Popdock is a great aggregation tool that can bring all that data together in one interface. All right, let me jump back in the slide deck just real quickly and just do a very quick review. Again, has more than 60 dedicated connectors today, and we keep adding additional ones all the time. And again, if you have ideas for one that you say, hey, it'd be really great, this is really cool, he showed me this res connector, but I really would love to see you guys do a dedicated one. Hey, give us those suggestions and we'll add them. But with this REST connector that we talked about today, we can connect to all kinds of other applications and share that data across multiple connectors. So I think you'll find that there's a ton of power with that. And again, I would encourage you, go ahead and start with a free trial today. 7-day trial, it takes literally 30 seconds to fire up. We have some sample data in there to get you started and just show how easy the interface is to use. So I'd encourage you to do that today. Again, my name is Chris Dew. I head up the product management team for Popdock here. And if you have questions that you want to dig into a bit further, love to talk to you about it. Here's my email, here's my phone number, and thank you for attending today. Have a great one, everybody.